great to be with you. And I've got to say, it's been great to be with your pastor. Last night we had a couple of hours at the airport drinking Coca-Cola and putting the whole of Northern Ireland to right. We solved Brexit by 11 o'clock. We told them what they ought to be doing. It's just a great joy to be, it really is. George very kindly prayed I would be blessed. I am blessed whenever I come to your shores. I've always received a wonderful welcome, and it's just great to be here on Mother's Day. And I don't know whether you could hear Dawn praying here. There was a little boy praying right next to me, but she prayed a prayer probably you couldn't all hear in the back there. That some days, when we have these festivals, it's not always a great day for everybody. For most of you, it's a wonderful day, but for me and my wife, we never had children. And this, years ago, not now, but years ago, this was a difficult day. Because I remember going to preach in one church. I told George this story last night, and it was Mother's Day, and I was the guest preacher. And in that church, they were still generous, not like your mean pastor. They gave every woman a daffodil. And so they came to bring the daffodil to my wife, and they said, "Here you are." And then she gave it to Margaret, and then said, "Oh, you're not a mother, are you?" And took it off her again. And my poor wife was devastated. And no one meant it to be hurtful. But you know, it's just sometimes the case when life can be tough. And life can be great. And it doesn't mean for those of you who are today going out with generational families, have a fantastic lunch. George has given me 2 hours to preach. And I am told that 12:15 piranha fish will eat me here, so I've got just 30 minutes to talk in just a moment. And I thought on Mother's Day, we've got to look at a woman's in the Bible. We're going to look at the book of Ruth. And what I'm going to do today, I'm going to simply take this passage and split it in two. It's going to be a two-part sermon. So part one, I call this particular sermon Love at Midnight. And it's a great day to remember birth of children and members' mums and all those sort of things. It's absolutely great. But in the Bible, Ruth is a character who knew an awful lot of pain as well as pleasure. You know, life can be like that. Life can be wonderful, and life can be awful. Life can be celebration, and life can be deep. Grieving goes on. And for this particular woman, well, we're going to start in chapter 3. And before I start to read, I want to give a quick, just an overview, because I can't assume you all know where I'm coming from. If this morning I preached on Ruth chapter 1, on the way out, you wouldn't get a daffodil, we'd be giving you Prozac. Because chapter 1 is depressing. Chapter 1 is all about dying. Chapter 1, it shows you a family. And it makes me smile when people say, the Bible, people who don't know God, say, oh, you Christians, you just hide behind these happy stories where everything's always supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And you know for instantly they never read the Bible. Because in chapter 1 there's a famine of Ruth. And the Bible hones down as always to one family. There's this one godly family. Why do I say the godly? Because Elimelech, his name means God is great. And he was obviously a godly man. He was an Ephrathite. He was brought up in Bethlehem. I'm sure you know Bethlehem means house of bread. They were living in the house of bread. They were living in the place they should be living in, but there was a problem. There was a physical famine. There are something like 11 to 13 famines in the Bible, and most of them God allows to get the attention of the people. And so there's this family, they're in the house of bread. And you know, for those of you who are pregnant, looking around, I can't see many pregnant women here. I don't know whether you are. You're hiding it very well if you are. And if you're hanging on for a prophetic word, maybe today's the day. I don't know. But please don't call your children. A lot of people like to call their babies by Bible names. Do not call them these two names. Their two children was Mahlon and Chilion. The first one meant sickly. So here's my brand new baby, Dawn. We're calling him sickly. Not the best in the world. And here's my second baby. We're calling him weakly. So sickly and weakly were the two babies, and it probably gives you a clue why when they had a famine, they were worried about the safety of their children, and they faced a dilemma. Do we trust God in the house of bread, or do we go to a place where there is bread? There was bread in Moab. It's about 50 miles away, that's all. Only about, it's a localized famine. Now Moab was the one place they shouldn't be going. Moab was the only tribe that God said could never enter the tent of Israel. One of the reasons being that they sacrificed children. But this family were desperate, and so they ran away from the house of bread to escape dying. They went to Moab, and they all died. Elimelech died. Balaam died. Chilion died. And by the end of chapter 1, the boys had grown up. And like most boys, they hit a certain age when testosterone kicked in. And they wanted to get wives. But there wasn't many good Jewish girls in Moab. So they ended up marrying these two ladies, Ruth and Orpah. End of chapter 1, dreadful. Chapter 2, they come to the census, and Naomi, who's changed her name to Mara, which now means bitter, says, let's go back to the house of bread. Let's go back. Things always start to get better when you go back to the house of bread. Remember that, that's not the point of the sermon, but you'll find blessing when you start to go back to the house of bread. And so she goes and gleans in the field, and you know, food bank was not the idea of the trussel truss. God in the Old Testament arranged that corners of fields could not be harvested, and any of the grain and barley that fell to the floor, they couldn't be picked up. They were left to the foreigners and the strangers and the widows. And so it was like a social service sort of setup where people didn't have families. And Ruth, for the first time, met Boaz, who she didn't realise. It says that she just so happened to be in the right field at the right time at the right place. God's destiny begins to work. And so she goes home and tells her mother-in-law all that's happened. And then we see in chapter 3, I'm going to read just 4 verses this morning. We're going to focus on just 4 verses, and tonight we'll look at some other verses in the same chapter. And so, chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. Just read through that. That's a context of where we're going. Now we're going to focus in on where we are today. Is that okay? Are you with me so far? Yes. You look like you are, but I've noticed 1 or 2 of the senior people here. You're obviously now praying for me because your eyes are closed. I am just assuming that you've got into intercession on my behalf. I am not thinking for a second you're sleeping. I'm just thinking, God help him. He's not as good as George. I know that. No one's as good as George. So even George isn't as good as George. But chapter 3, verse 1, the first 4 verses. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, my daughter, I must find a home for you, where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know that you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. A woman with a plan. Just a moment, we're going to unpack that. Just to mention, my left-hand side, your right hand, we have a little book table. We've just brought a few books with me on this occasion. And I want to rescue some of your husbands from your trouble from your wife. If you've not yet bought a present for your wife, it's not too late. Just to mention the latest book that we've just not long ago had called The Well and the Woman. In John chapter 4, you'll find an amazing story of the woman of the well. And Margaret wrote the first third of the book and tried to imagine, in a very sympathetic way. We've lived in Glasgow for 29 years. Our church was in the gold balls. We met many women like the woman at the well who'd had several relationships, and they were not bad people. Life had been tough to them. We didn't condemn them, we tried to love them to life. And so Margaret, in the first third of the book, writes with her imagination how it was she could have got in the position where she'd had 5 husbands and the man she's now living with is not a husband. And then the second 2/3, there's just 7 sort of very simple thoughts and meditations from that passage that will enhance, which will help position ourselves for your destiny. I don't know whether in people's church, Luke and Abby, you think you've got destiny. Anybody who thinks you've got destiny over your life, over your church? Well, 7 of you, well, pray for the rest. Some more eyes are closing at that point, George. And I'm 64 years of age, and I've just bought a new jacket. 1 or 2 of the men have been admiring my new jacket. I just thought, one person said hi to me when I walked in, but I won't go there. Someone else said, are you joining Butlins? But I'm not. This is, I want to sing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor. I wore my, no, I won't go there. But just to say, God has a destiny, and I'm 64, and I would hate to think that all of my destiny is behind me. I'd hate to think that it's all my destiny. I'm believing till the day I go to heaven, God's got things for me to do. Amen? Like, for real, so I will hurry. Well, and the woman. And just an old favourite here. Again, we have no kids, but we do have a dog. That's our dog. His name is Jack Peat, and he gets more kisses than me. And about 5 years ago, if you don't like dogs, don't buy this book. Don't even look at it because you won't like it. But if you do like dogs, it's full of stories of our dog. And Margaret, in the most wonderful ways, tied it in with the book of Psalms. And this is a 31-day devotional about what God thinks of you. Not what you think of you, not what your wife thinks of you or husband thinks of you, or even what you think of yourself. It's 31 days explaining every day just about the Father heart of God and how God cares for you. You are trained, you're an heir, you're delivered, you're healed, you're watched over, you're guided, you're given joy, you're given health. Just 31-day devotional. There at the back, they're £7 each. Please look at them, take one, and please leave the money. In Glasgow, that doesn't always happen in that order. So we thank God for you. Okay. Looking at the time. I'm going to talk about 2 things this morning and 3 things tonight. But it's all going to be part of this passage in the book of Ruth. Introduction. Mother-in-law has a plan. Mother-in-laws often have plans for your lives, and we're celebrating Mother's Day today. And my word, this lady's Ruth. She became part, as we'll see, of the lineage even of Jesus Christ. An amazing Moabite pagan woman, came from a family that were so evil they sacrificed babies. Yet God is about to turn around disaster into destiny. And God is absolutely amazing at taking disaster and turning it into destiny. He's just amazing how that happens. And so we see 2 things in this passage I want to share today. I want to first of all talk about the plan. The plan. 2 weeks ago I took a wedding, which may not be strange to George, but I've not taken a wedding for 10 years because I don't have a local church. I used to do 10 weddings a year, but I've not been asked for 10 years. But there was a girl from my old church who, their family had a terrible marriage, and I remember rescuing her from her mum was being beaten up by her dad, and we rescued her, brought her home late at night. It was one of those dark night things, and she grew up in our church, and we love her, and she said, "Would you marry me, Pastor?" And I'd forgotten, until you arrange your wedding, just how little the bridegroom has to do. It's all planned by either the mother-in-law or the wife-to-be. And I'm sat there, and for 45 minutes, the bride-to-be spoke for 44 minutes, and the bridegroom said, "I'm just turning up in my new suit, and take my stickers off my shoes, because they were going to walk this way, they're going to walk that, they're going to play music here, there's going to be parachutes coming in, there's going to be all sorts of things. It's like this military operation." And I'm thinking, wow, what a plan. When I got married, it was around the local pub, get married, that was it. There wasn't really much to do, but nowadays, you spend about £20,000 to £30,000 on one. I think we got married to about £10.50. And we warned the person in the pub that most of the people who come in are Christians, and so there won't be much partakings. At the end of the night, he said to me, "We've had the best night for months." I thought, "Oh, thank God for that. That was the brethren for you," but there you go. There was me being teetotal. I think I'm the only teetotal person in the church, but there you go. I had a shandy in 1979, but that was it, so I think God's forgiven me now. God, as much as a woman has a plan, I want to tell, ladies and gentlemen of People's Church, God has a master plan. And the big problem is, we only see bits of it when we're in the middle of the section. If this bit's going bad, and you're in the midst of a divorce, and you're in the midst of a trauma, and you're in the midst of something not well, you think, God can't have a plan because everything's going wrong. Other people are being healed, I'm not. God doesn't have a plan. They've got a wife, I haven't got a wife. I haven't got a husband. God's not hearing my prayers. And you think, this is awful. If in chapter 1 we said the plan of God has ended, Naomi would say, God is cruel. Naomi would have said, I cannot believe in God because he's killed my husband, he's killed my children, and I've got nothing, call me bitter. But that's only part of the plan. And the key is, we have to see life in technicolor, not black and white. Not just in the season where we are. Life in isolation is bad. Life in perspective is good. Now, just a human, there's this woman who's a Moabite. Remember, they're hated. She's come back with her mother-in-law, and her mother has warned her, you will never get married, you'll never be a mother, because you're a Moabite, and even though my sons married you, they shouldn't have done, and now they're back in Bethlehem, back in the church, in the house of bread. If you come with me, you're going to be a barren woman. She still came with her, but we now see the beginning of a plan. And for the woman, the mother-in-law, she thinks this Boaz, who is what we call a guardian redeemer, AV, kinsman redeemer, that in the Old Testament days, when somebody died, that's why family was so important. If somebody died, another member of the family would marry the widow, have children to keep the name of the deceased going. That's how it worked in Bible days. Is there any wonder why I think the most attacked thing in our society today is family? If you're in a family with 2.4 children and mum and dad, you're almost in a rarity now. It's almost a rare thing to be happily married. I talk to people all the time. I go to a gym. I don't do anything in the gym, but I go to a gym. But I go and sit in the sauna. And when you're in a sauna, you don't look like a pastor when you're in your cosy. And so I'm in my cosy, and we all start talking, and all the guys talking. And they say, are you married? I say, yeah. How long have you been married? 40 years. I don't know anyone who's been married 40 years. I've had 3. I've not married any of them. I've got 4 children by 3 different women. That's the norm. That's the norm. no families under attack. Yet, as much as this seemed like a good idea to Naomi, look at the bigger picture. Take a moment to think. Don't want to spoil the end of the book. You know the story. They get married. She has a child called Obed. Obed grows up, gets married, has a child called Jesse. Jesse grows up, gets married, has a child called David. Go forward about another 15 generations and there's a lady called Mary who's of the same lineage, down the same family line. She gives birth to a young boy who's the Saviour of the world, the Lord Jesus Christ. You see, God's plan is better than any plan we've got. And sometimes we only see, because of the cocoon where we are, we don't see that bigger picture of the plan. Oh, I read an article in the paper. I was in Blackpool on Friday, and in the paper, one of these facts, it says 80% of women under 30 feel lonely. 80% of women under 30 feel incredibly lonely. I have no idea where they got that fact from, but I just was thinking about it, about this whole thing of plan. You know, you may be here today because someone's invited because it's Mother's Day. Come to church. They may have told you might be getting a daffodil. Tough. Things are tight at the moment. No, if you want a couple of seed, take it out of the car park. But let me tell you, you may be here today because you've wandered past the building, but it may well be that God's almighty plan has brought you here today that you start your journey into faith. It might well be that for some of you who've been pretty lukewarm and you've not been hot as a British, it could be that God's arranged an Englishman with a funny coat on to be here to preach this word that says this is the day when the next part of the plan in your life will take part if you get back into the house of bread fully. You say, I'm in the house of bread. I'm not talking about just your body. You know, your spirit leaves before your body does. Your emotions leave and you drag your body here. I mean, don't put your hands up, you'll discourage me and George, but how many of you this morning think, it's Mother's Day, that's going to be a good excuse not to go today. We won't get the 3-line party whip this week. George won't be on the phone by 1:30 asking where I was. Tommy won't come round and threaten to break your legs because you weren't in the Lord's house this week. You won't be forced to hear 10 of George's sermon played back to back backwards. It could well be, folks, that part of God's plan is that you're here today. And he's here to tell you that the house of bread is the place you need to get into with all your heart and all your strength. And to get to know Jesus. And the part of God's plan is to position you for your destiny.
Amen.
Why not? As much as I come over here, it's an incredible thrill to be with you. But I come over to fellowship with George. He's an old friend. I love him dearly. I love Linda. And I just enjoy being with him. He inspires me. He listens to me. And it's just good. So this is the icing on the cake for me. But it could be that God's just arranged these few moments to say, come on, house of bread. You've been heading to Moab too long. Come on, you're in the midst of some traumatic, tragic part of your life and you think God's not talking to you, God's done with you. But it could well just be the next steps about to move into incredible breakthrough. Why not? Ooh, I'm excited for the next point. And I know what's coming next. So that's the plan. Just this second point I'm going to finish today. That's in verse 1. We see in verses 2 and 4. We see the preparation. You see, it's one thing to have a plan, but the next thing you've got to prepare. What does Naomi say to this woman who's been out gleaning? She was a bit dirty. She's probably a bit smelly. And if we were to put it into modern parlance, she would say, get the little black dress out. It's time to go out. It's time to change circumstances. Get your perfume on. Have a good wash. It was a typical woman thinking like a woman. I want to get you a man. So if I'm going to get you a man, get your best glad rags on. Dress up. Do your hair. Smell nice. Have a wash. You don't look attractive when you smell like you've been in the field all day. Get yourself ready. Prepare yourself, because tonight there's a bit of magic in the air. Tonight could be the night. All that Ruth had known since she'd known Naomi was pain. All that she'd had. She married her boy. He died. There's a grave. She's trekked the 50 miles to the place where the family came from, Bethlehem. She's rejected because she speaks differently. She's got different customs. She's despised for who she is. But it's time for the preparation. So it says it's time to take off those clothes, to prepare yourself, to get ready for what do I think for us today on Mother's Day? What does it mean? I think what the Lord could be saying today to some of us, it's time to stop being a widow and to get ready for a wedding. Now I'm talking not just, please hear me, I'm not just talking about the physical widow, I'm just talking in the spiritual sense. It's time to change your clothes. You know, life sometimes plays some tricks on you, and I shared just a little bit, but I want to just unpack this, because I always feel on Mother's Day I have a special empathy for those people who would love to be mothers who are not. Because we've been there, we've lost parents, some of you have lost children, it's all trauma, but I have a special empathy for people, and we probably had a little niche ministry to pray with couples who are childless, because that's where we've been. And let me tell you, like I said to you that day, it was awful. I can remember, we got married 40 years ago, and just like every other couple, we had about 18 months, happily married life, and then my wife turned to me and said, I think it's time. I want to be a mum. And so, I bought a book to find out how these things happen, and I had to do a bit of study into the Greek, and I thought that seems okay. So we tried. 2 years went by, 4 years went by, 6 years go by. Mum-in-laws and mums are saying, when are you going to make me a grandma? And being English, this is not easy to talk about. It wasn't years ago. Very difficult to talk about when it's your private, innermost heart. And we have these things with Mother's Day. Margaret's crying every month. Whenever her monthly cycle came, tears yet again, disappointment. And I know, as the youth pastor, I was holding babies of people barely saved, and I was dedicating babies to Jesus. And I look over there because the grand piano was over here that my wife played in the Derby Heathen Church. And I know if I looked at my wife, I would see tears running down her face, because the husband's holding somebody else's baby. And it's the thing we want most in the world. And let me tell you, I've got some old stuff on there. Why God not answering my prayers? There's people at the front of this church who are barely saved. In fact, I almost doubt whether one of them is saved. They're certainly not living for Jesus. And I mean, babies like piggies shelling peas. It's not fair. Resentment. Cynicism. And I began to get dressed up in stuff. It wasn't a nice coat like this. It was a dirty, grubby coat. And because life was not treating me well, it was a period of our lives that was incredibly painful. And some of you have been there in other areas. Some of you may be single, and you think, I've got 2 arms and a leg like any other man or woman, but no one's ever asked me out. Or you've gone through the agony of divorce, and someone's rejected you for somebody else. My older brother used to swap his girls about every 5 years for a younger model. He was still doing it at 60 years of age. He had about 7 common law wives. And I said, Mum, they're all getting younger. He has a problem. And you know what mums are like. They can never blame their children. It's not our John's fault. It's these girls' fault he keeps falling for. Mums are incredible people. Sometimes so frustrating when you're a guy. So I know what it's like to wear some bad clothes. I know what it's like to walk with a limp in church. I know what it's like to smile, sparkle, be confident, God is good all the time. And I've done the Sunday stuff, but unfortunately Monday follows Sunday. And sometimes it doesn't feel so good. And so I'm just trying to paint a realistic picture that sometimes there comes a time, if you're going to get ready for something new, you've got to take something old off. A bit like normal wisdom. Mr. Grimsdale! That's for a certain generation of person here. For those who are under 70, you won't understand normal wisdom. Mr. Grimsdale! I won't go there. What do I mean? You know, this morning, I wonder whether God could say to you, son, daughter, would you take off cynicism and put back on faith? I wonder for someone this morning, is it time to take off discouragement and put on hope that God can do it? God can turn things around. We see an incredible happy ending. If you live in chapter 1, God is terrible. If you live in chapter 3 and 4, God is great. Where you living? Where you camping at this moment in your life, church? I wonder, is it time to take off being hurt? Oh, dear me. I won't do this because it would cause all the women to stumble here. If I took my shirt off and was to expose my back to you spiritually, let me tell you, you would see scores of sheep bites, knife wounds, devil's attacks. I have been hurt. I have been criticised. I have been lied about. People have said things about me. I was once accused of having an affair with somebody. I've had everything said. I've been Jezebel. I've been Ahab. I've been a control freak. I've been told I look like George Clooney once. I've had a lot of stuff happen to me, and let me tell you, if I wanted to, I could bleed before you ever so easy with when I've been hurt. But I would much rather tell you how God has turned my hurt to healing, and how He has taken off and healed all those wounds, and He saved me. I said to my wife the other day, if I drop down dead today, darling, I said, don't you grieve too much, because I have had the most fabulous, magnificent, amazing, incredible life. I've travelled the world, yet I couldn't use a phone till I was 17 because I used to stutter, and I was frightened of my own shadow, and I'm now travelling the world doing what I do because God has turned hurt to healing. And our story of childlessness, we have now prayed for at least 10 childless couples who've had babies because God has done wonders for things. And we are not walking around, you know, like those who play the piano, you know, black notes for funeral, white notes for weddings. Some people just play the black notes. You know, you take all the air out of the room. No one happens over here in Newton Abbey because you're all such godly people. But there were people in Glasgow, we would toss up a coin to see which pastor was going to visit Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. And being as I tossed the coin, I never lost. Because I know half an hour in Mrs. So-and-so's house and I've been wanting to slash my wrist because things are so bad. And in Mr. So-and-so's house, oh, Pastor, I'm so pleased you've come. Since you came last time, things have got really bad. They were bad last time, but let me tell you, bad got badder. Worse got worse. I'm even afraid to ask God to come and take me home because I don't think I'll get there. I don't think I'll go to heaven, so I'm stuck. I've got to stay here because I'm thinking, how long can I stay without getting out of this atmosphere? Because there is no hope. It's just hurt. Now, I'm not belittling it, but I'm saying there comes a moment, and I believe that I'm here today for one of those moments where God could say, oh, time's gone. God doesn't say time's gone, I said time's gone. I'm going to carry on this tonight, and then I've got 3 more points, all beginning with Peat. We here, of course, said we're going to bring the gospel into it, but I want to just end with this. As a preacher, we can sometimes use words, but in my spirit, I feel that this morning I'm here for this point. Because for somebody here, this is your day to say, I am not staying the victim any longer. I am making the choice to trust the cross, trust the blood, trust God's sanctification process. And even though things have been bad, I'm taking off yesterday because today is a preparation to stop being a widow and a widower, and I've got to get ready for the wedding. Let's pray. You've listened so fantastically well. You've got to go and get your dinners real soon. Have roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. It's what we're going to eat in heaven. Let's close our eyes just a moment. I'm going to close in prayer of my part of this meeting in just about 2 minutes. But I can't preach this without giving an invitation. And I'm just going to first of all speak to Christians who are here, speaking to the body. For 1 or 2 people, this is one of those kairos moments where God has sent a preacher amongst your midst to almost prophetically declare from the scriptures that it's time to prepare for a new season. And you have got to go and get changed. And God will do it. And I know we don't have time. I'm not going to bring anybody forward. I'm not going to even get to put your hand up. But just in a moment, if this is a word for you, and you know this is God, I would love to pray for you. So I need to know who these people are. So here's what I'd like to do. Is every eye's closed, please? Just a moment of silence.